So our Guild Wars philosophy, solving a player problems, a deep dive into how we build games at ArenaNet. Hello community, today Guild Wars 3 update is a big one, as I'm going to be talking about the core philosophy to define the way we make games. So grab a cup of your favorite drink, sit back or lean forward and relax, it's reading time. When we set out to build Guild Wars 3, we didn't start by asking what a sequel should look like. Actually, Guild Wars 3 is a prequel, technically, but we started with something more fundamental. The core philosophy is to define how we build games at ArenaNet over the last 21 years. Our philosophy is a simple, relatively simple one. When we make a new game, we take an inventory of the genre at the time, the good and the bad. Then we identify player problems, frustrations, and limitations. We ask, how could we solve them? I actually generally like Guild Wars 2, but it does have some issues. So let's see. Talk about 4 core elements we've come to know and love about the Guild Wars games that arose from this approach to game development. These are expectations we know players have of any Guild Wars game as a result of the innovations we delivered over the years. Share how we've applied these expectations in Guild Wars 3. Okay. Number 1, no subscription fee. That's not really debatable, right? Guild Wars 2 doesn't have a subscription fee to it. From the beginning, one of the most defining ideas behind Guild Wars was a simple: players should be able to buy the game and play it on their own terms. When Guild Wars launched in 2005, that wasn't the norm. Subscription fees were a core part of the MMO model. They actually still are. Choosing not to have one wasn't just a pricing decision, it was a statement about accessibility and long-term value. We've carried that forward into Guild Wars 2, and it remains just as important today. Guild Wars 3 will be a buy-to-play game at release. There will be no subscription fee. I like that. That's good. One of the things I do like about Guild Wars 2 that works well for them is that I don't play it consistently. I play it very on and off, but being a buy-to-play game does mean I can just re-download and start playing the game whenever I want, and I don't have that $15 entry fee again. I think that works very well for them. This model matters because it puts players in control. Our goal is for players to feel like their time in the game is something they choose, not something they owe. Want a breaking to go play other games? Great, go for it. We recommend trying out Guild Wars Reforged and Guild Wars 2. We hear they're awesome. Ready to come back when the next Guild Wars 3 expansion comes out? Wonderful. We'll be there waiting for you. It's a good system. But just saying there won't be a subscription fee isn't enough anymore. We've been looking carefully at the newest round of modern MMOs and the broad array of live service games that look suspiciously like MMOs, and seeing how subscription-like services have evolved. In many newer games, the subscription hasn't disappeared. It's been reshaped. Paid battle passes, paid recurring seasonal tracks, and similar paid systems often function as a new kind of ongoing fee. I actually do think there are ethical ways to do battle passes, but I haven't seen a game do it yet. I actually think the closest seasonal pass I like is Deep Rock Galactic, because it lets you change between which pass you're working on at any given point. Now, they don't monetize it, even though I would still pay if they did. But I like that there's no FOMO. If I didn't play in Season 1, which I didn't, I can still access the Season 1 track and get all the cosmetics from it. There's no FOMO of, well, I didn't play, or what if I want this later? It's just always available to you, which actually would fit very well in Guild Wars 3. That model works well in some games, but not in line with how we think player freedom in a Guild Wars game. It's a form of subscription fee hidden inside a neat optional package that obfuscates the subscription from the player. When we say Guild Wars 3 won't have a subscription fee, we mean it. No monthly fees and no battle pass subscription fees. Just buy the game and play it when you want. If we earn your trust and you feel we are delivering experiences you love, we'll have expansions and other ways you can buy from us if you think they're worth your investment. Okay. So I'm going to put a little asterisk. Otherwise, I really do agree with this, because Guild Wars 2 does not have a subscription fee. However, the game does somewhat penalize you if you don't buy things. Especially when you're deeper into the game. You have so many seasonal currencies. The game doesn't give you hardly any bank space. It doesn't give you much inventory space. It really does pressure you to buy inventory space, which I don't love. But again, it's free to play, so I don't mind it a little bit. The problem I have is that I want my purchases from the Guild Wars shop to be accessible to all characters. If I buy 10 inventory spaces, I want every character to have 10 more inventory spaces, right? Especially for a game where you have to have multiple players to try out characters to try out all the classes. That means people like me that want to play other classes have multiplied their subscription cost, right? if I buy a tool that, some of the gathering tools from the cash shop, which are just really good gathering tools, let's be real, they're better. And that's maybe not pay to win, but yeah, I want every character to be able to claim and use those tools. I don't want to have to buy a separate universal inventory slot and then manually have to put it back onto each character every time I change characters. That's stupid. They're just making an extra step there to make you buy additional things. And I don't like that. And it is technically not a subscription fee, but it is a very big problem I have with Guild Wars 2 monetization. Just make the things you buy available to all characters on your account instead of just one, and that fixes the system. No pay to win guild. Okay, let's read it first because I have issues with that. Speaking of things you can buy from us, this one's pretty simple. In the statement we made before the release of Guild Wars 2 about our philosophy in this area, it remains true to this day. We think players should have the opportunity to spend money on items that provide visual distinction, offer you more ways to express yourself. Cosmetics in a buy-to-play game are fine. Cosmetic systems in pay-to-play games like WoW and 14 are not okay. Those systems are not acceptable. Guild Wars 2 gets a pass, though. Or you think players have the opportunity to spend money on items that provide visual distinction and offer them ways to express themselves? They should be able to spend money on account services and on time-saving convenience items, but it's never okay in a Guild Wars game for players who spend money to have an unfair advantage over players who spend... Okay, so this gets into one little problem. This is a problem, but I don't think it's a big enough problem that I'm going to build a huge issue to it. Be able to spend money on account services and time-saving convenience items. Certain things like being able to buy boosters... Experience boosters, I don't mind, because most people don't like leveling characters after you do the story once. But things like drop rate boosters actually do give you an in-game advantage. That is actually pay to win. I don't think it's pay to win to such an extent that I have a serious issue with it. It's not like the MMOs that have you gambling on how to upgrade your equipment. That is really bad. That's probably the reason I'm not going to play Aeon 2 very long. But... You can't say no pay to win in Guild Wars 2 when you can spend real money to buy premium currency, change that premium currency into the in-game currency, and then buy items on the auction house with it, right? That's where the actual problem comes in. If you could go in and buy better equipment by spending in-game money, that is pay to win. That is your character getting strength via your credit card, right? And I think Guild Wars 2 is much better about this than most MMOs, but them saying no pay to win is completely hypocritical of what Guild Wars 2 is right now, right? And again, not as bad as most MMOs, but they still have some pay to win elements. They absolutely do. Also, Guild Wars 2, I think Guild Wars 2 has 3 different system of player-owned housing or things like that. And I wouldn't mind player-owned housing being able to buy certain cosmetics from the cash shop, but you can actually buy things to put into your player-owned houses that are harvestable once a day, and some of those are getting you much rarer materials or materials that are exclusive, right? That is again pay to win. You are spending money to essentially gain passive income in your game. How is that not a pay-to-win system that they've got away with for a very long time? But yeah, the no pay-to-win, hypocritical. Completely disagree with ArenaNet on this. Guild Wars 2 is not nearly as bad as most MMOs. Not even close to most MMOs. But it is still pay-to-win. They have no right to be saying this. Respecting your time and investment. Respecting players' time has always been a core part of Guild Wars. I think that's more important today than ever. Most common perception of the MMO genre is that games require massive time investments to play. So actually, I think this statement here, requiring massive time investments to play, if you want certain things in Guild Wars 2, it does take a massive time investment, but you can no-life the game or just play a few hours a week, and because it's not pay to play, you're not really penalized for that. Again, I actually really do like the buy-to-play method for Guild Wars. Historically, MMO engagement has been viewed as an experience like a second job where players spend a large amount of time preparing to have fun before they can actually engage in the fun parts. Only have 30 minutes to play. Don't play an MMO. You'll need that time just to organize your inventory, figure out what you're going to play. You're going to set up oh no, time's up, and you haven't begun the gameplay yet. That's actually one of the reasons I kind of got out of raiding in World of Warcraft, is I got to the point where it felt like you had a real job, and people would get upset if you needed to take a day off and had other things to do. Right? It took so much, especially like playing a mage in vanilla, where I had to get to raid half an hour before everyone else to start summoning food and water for players. That felt terrible. I didn't want to do that. That wasn't fun content for me. Like, yeah, raiding especially, I think, is really bad for casual players. But Guild Wars 2 does a pretty good job where you can kind of just queue up for most things quickly. A sort of like a quick play system for fractals could be a little bit better, but that's, yeah, it's not too bad. Players today have more choice than ever, and so many modern gaming experiences allow players to quickly and meaningfully get a return on their time investment in the game without significant barriers or preparing to have fun. This means our responsibility isn't just to create content, it's to make sure that time spent in-game feels meaningful. This has always been important to Arena and the Guild Wars franchise, but we're continuing to evolve this philosophy of a modern era of game development, asking how a genre that is dominated by 10 to 20-year-old gamers monetizes this space. Wait, asking how a genre that is dominated by 10 to 20-year-old gamers monetizing this? That's not true, right? I don't believe that. Wait, I'm reading this wrong, right? For the modern era of game development, asking how a genre that is dominated by 10 to 20-year-old games, 10 to 20-year-old games, not gamers. I'm like, there's no way your typical MMORPG gamer is in their teens. There's no way. I actually bet MMOs have one of the older demographics for gameplay. Okay. We're fine. I misread that. I'm mad at myself. I'm sorry for wasting time. We want you to feel good about the time you invest, whether you're playing every day, only have an hour or two every week, or coming back after a long break from the game. For our existing fans, we've already announced there will be a new Hall of Monuments that connects your Guild Wars 2 account to your Guild Wars 3 account, provides a wide array of rewards as a means of saying thank you and showing we respect the time and investment you've already made in the franchise. We'll talk in more detail about the future, how Guild Wars 3 game and content systems are evolving to create a new take on the MMO that respects players' time and investment. Okay. So first of all, I didn't hear about this Hall of Monuments. That sounds cool. It's not something you need, but as long as it's providing just like statues and little like trophies kind of thing, I don't care. Now, if you have to play Guild Wars 2, do an achievement there to get a passive resource generation, like your homestead kind of, that's not good. But this actually could be really cool. This is a neat little thing. Kind of whatever. I think Guild Wars does do a generally good time of protecting your time investments. I don't think I ever really felt like I needed to do dailies. Although you do have to you are time gated in what you do. So I think I mentioned this earlier. Some of the getting like legendary weapons require you to do global events. That feels really bad sometimes because the global events only come up every, is it 4 hours or so? Which means if you miss it, you kind of just can't progress on your main goal for 4 hours, which feels really bad. And the kind of holdback for that is actually the way they handle world shards, because some shards will populate by players doing the world quest, and you'll be able to do it really easily, right? If you just have the entire server trying to kill these 3 bosses, easy, you have no problem doing it. And then you get your rewards and you made your progress that day. But if you get stuck in a world shard that doesn't have enough players on it actually doing that content, that just means you can't do it. The world events don't scale well enough that 10-man parties can solo 3 bosses at a time and manage that. It's actually like that. I've had so many instances where I keep hopping worlds trying to get into a world I can actually do the world event in. It just feels terrible, and it feels very disrespectful of my time that I can't progress my main goal because I got unlucky and put into a world where players weren't focusing on this content. It feels really... I've had several times where I'm like, okay, well, we've got about a dozen of us here. Let's see if we can do it. And we can get most of the way through it, but can't kill the bosses at the end. And it's like, okay, I just spent an hour trying to manage a dozen people that we just could not do because the world selection screwed all of us. And that does not feel like a good use of my time. That's actually, I think, the last thing I did in Guild Wars before I took a break from it was farming legendaries and getting in that situation too many times. I know that's a very particular response, But it was particular enough that I put the game down for a while. So it is something they definitely need to fix. Finally, innovating and evolving the MMORPG genre. I'm almost certainly going to agree with this. One of our most important parts of this philosophy, one that's sometimes surprising people, is that we don't aim to make direct sequels. Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 are very different games. They are, and I actually hope they take a little bit from Guild Wars 1 and bring it back. I actually liked being able to mix classes. That was a neat system. And that was intentional. That they take place in the same world, each one was built to push against the convention at the time, solve player problems relevant to the era of games, and explore new ideas in the MMO space. The MMO landscape today isn't the same as it was during the development of Guild Wars or Guild Wars 2. Player expectations have changed. Technology has evolved. The way people engage online worlds is broader and more varied. The lines between an MMO and a live service game have blurred. The amount of time players have to dedicate a single game has decreased as their library of games has continued to grow. This is also a little bit of a problem, as I mentioned earlier, because most of your MMO players are going to be just older people. And as we're older, we're not teenagers playing vanilla WoW anymore. People have, careers, sometimes multiple careers. They have families, they have other obligations. They just don't have as much time to play. Like, it isn't, for some people, it might be having too many games to play. But I think for a lot of people, it's just, you only get an hour to yourself every evening to sit down and do whatever you want. Sometimes you do want to play your MMO. Sometimes you just want to sit down and relax and breathe. If we approach Guild Wars 3 by simply extending what we've already done, we miss the opportunity to move the genre forward. A genre that we've heard so many of you say desperately needs innovation and evolution. So instead of just making a sequel, we're asking the same question we always do. What does the next evolution of an MMO look like? That's actually a good question. I like that a lot. Answering that question means Guild Wars 3 will be its own kind of game, distinct from Guild Wars Reforged and Guild Wars 2, are two existing games that fall on the two furthest ends of the MMORPG spectrum. Guild Wars Reforged is, at its core, a game about a small team. A player and their assembled team of henchmen or hero NPCs or other players they want to bring with them overcome challenges in a predominantly instanced game. Unless you invite them along, you never saw another player except in the game's social hub. That's true. Coming from, World of Warcraft, that actually felt really, lonely when you leave towns. When we released the original Guild Wars, we branded the game as a CORPG, cooperative RPG. However, this branding never stuck, and everyone informed us we'd released an MMORPG. We'd even won multiple MMO of the Year awards, which they deserved. The original Guild Wars was really good. We gave up on the CORPG angle since it didn't stick with players, and we'd simply embrace what everyone told us. We shipped a unique kind of MMORPG. Guild Wars 2 is the opposite. At its core, it's a game about giant-scale experiences in an expansive world setting, giant world boss battles, map-wide meta events, and PvP on a scale of what Guild Wars 2 is most known for. Although the game offers a wide variety of different experiences. Actually, Guild Wars 2 does a really good job of making things feel massive. Like I talked about, some of the world events really do feel like you are fighting big bosses. The dragons in the game, oh my god, the dragons in Guild Wars 2 feel so unique compared to, dragons in Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft, or even a lot of single-player RPGs. The dragons in Guild Wars 2 feel like disasters. These are forces of nature that will just wipe you off the planet if they decide to. It is such an insurmountable hurdle. I actually really like the way Guild Wars 2 has done this. Guild Wars 3 lands near the middle of the MMO spectrum, which supports the goals we have for our movement or combat systems. While it fits the definition of an MMORPG significantly more than Guild Wars Reforged does, it doesn't try to replicate the large-scale gameplay pillars that so uniquely define Guild Wars 2. This ensures that all three of our games can coexist with different experiences on different timelines, telling different stories about the world of Tyria. It's actually really interesting, because I even in my circle of friends and on Twitter, I've seen people complain that them having 3 games at the time means every game won't get enough attention. Which I get. That is logistically true, unless they hire more people. Right? If your problem is oh, they're not going to produce as much content for these new games, you just hire new people to focus on the new games. If you move people around, you're correct. But if you just hire more people, you're good. Yeah, it's not necessarily a problem. I realize this is intentionally somewhat broad and vague, and you all want to know more about the specifics of what that means right now. It's true, we want more specifics. We're excited. But we got a very long campaign ahead of us between now and the launch of Guild Wars 3, and there's plenty of time. We'll discuss the specifics in much greater detail in the future as we share more information on the various game systems, content systems, and concepts that make up Guild Wars 3. That's a pretty picture. Looking ahead, as we continue development, these pillars are our foundation. They shape not just individual features, but the overall direction of the game. You'll see us come back to them often in the future when we discuss the game in more detail. And as always, player feedback will be a big part of the process. We only know we've solved player problems when you tell us our solutions are working. Has been a conversation to developers and community that doesn't change with Guild Wars 3. When we join that conversation on our social channels, okay, they're just plugging at this point. Conversation has just begun. We can't wait to share where we're going. Colin Jones. Okay. Overall, I think I made it very clear. I actually really like a lot of what Guild Wars 2 has going on. And I am a little critical, especially their monetization. Like, saying no pay to win is just untrue. I actually am, like, a little bit triggered at them just blatantly lying about this. But it's better. Also, like, ArenaNet's a company. They have to make money to pay their workers, right? It'd be cool if we lived in a society where people could just do their passions and not have to worry about feeding themselves, but I do get they need to monetize. I think Guild Wars 3 is going to turn out pretty good. ArenaNet actually does have a pretty good track record. I like Guild Wars 1, I like Guild Wars 2, for different reasons, but yeah, I am overall very excited to see what they have with Guild Wars 3. My biggest concern, again, will just be, like these two right here, is just monetization. I really don't. I like the free-to-play part. It feels very respectful of my time that I can leave a game, come back in a few months, and I don't have to catch up, right? Final Fantasy XIV doesn't do a great job of that. But Guild Wars 2 does. Like, I can start off and my gear hasn't fallen behind the curve. Any projects I was working on, I still have all my progress. I still have all my credits. Yeah, and I could pick up the game at any time and continue what I was working on. You have to buy the expansions for the new stuff, but that's okay. That's not a big deal, right? I just feel disrespected with my monetization when I buy things for my thief, and then it's like, oh, well, I want to play an engineer. Oh, my engineer has no inventory slots. Buy them again. It's kind of like, I already paid for this. Why are you asking me to pay this a second time? And then a third time when I want to pay a, like, water elementalist. And then a fourth time when I want to play another class. Like, it's so... The monetization is pay to win. Just slightly, but it is. And it's disrespectful. I'd really like to see ArenaNet work on that. But otherwise, yeah, respecting your time and investment, they do a really good job of. Innovating and evolving the MMO genre, also super good. I don't know any other MMO that does horizontal progression anywhere close to what Guild Wars 2 does. Now, I actually would like a little bit more vertical progression, because it kind of feels like once you like get a certain level of gear, it's like you're just not going to upgrade it, right? Like the ascended gear is and it's like, okay, well, let me just start working on my legendaries now. And I don't know, there's a little bit of a gap, and maybe that's just from playing World of Warcraft from so long, like doing raids twice a week trying to get better gear. And Guild Wars 2 is like, no, we don't do that here, right? I don't know. But yeah, overall, this is pretty good. Like I said, I only like really disagree with the no pay to win thing. But otherwise, yeah, Guild Wars 2 is good. We're going to look forward to Guild Wars 3. And, you know, keep up to date with it. Should be pretty good. Also, I have a feeling I might actually turn this into a YouTube video. So yeah, do the like and subscribe. Do the funny YouTube stuff. You know, I don't know how to tell you what it is. Just give me a like. Help the small content creator out. Yeah. That'll be it. Thanks.